you know what? We just got some cuts in, and I'll be honest, guys, I missed on a good chunk of them here. Some of them I kind of gave more credit to different positions. I was allotting more people in different positions than other positions that the Rams ended up actually keeping. Like they kept 3 quarterbacks. I did not anticipate that at all. They kept only 4 cornerbacks, but 6 safeties. I didn't anticipate that at all. So I feel like that's backwards, but hey, you know what? Our safeties kind of play all over the place. So let's talk about some cuts. We had some cuts on Monday, which was the day after, or 2 days after the game. Sunday was a big recovery day for myself. And if I'm being honest, Monday and Tuesday were kind of recovery days for myself as well. We partied kind of hard in Denver on Saturday, but I had an absolute blast. We'll talk about that game here in a minute. But we had some cuts come in on Monday, and that was cornerback Donovan Alumba, guard Jordan Meredith, guard Jeremiah Colon, cornerback Bronte Harris, who I had staying on the 53-man roster, and safety Troy Warner, and wide receiver Jeremiah Hadel. On the second day, this was actually the deadline day, so we were kind of keeping a close eye on. There was a lot of things getting weird on this day. It was difficult to know what was going on. About like an hour and a half before the deadline, the Rams are going out to practice, so I'm reading tweets about who's out there and who's not out there, trying to get some kind of inkling of information so I could just know first. I don't actually, I didn't do anything with that information. I just wanted to know it as fast as I could. But on day 2, I'll just run through the names here. The list is readily available online if you guys want to check it out. But we got wide receiver Landon Akers, running back Otis Anderson Jr., defensive tackle Eric Banks, who has been claimed off waivers, by the way, by the Chargers, so he is on their 53. Tight end Kendall Blanton, who I had on the roster. Tackle Chandler Brewer, defensive end Ernest Brown, who was a drafted rookie. Defensive tackle Marquise Copeland, defensive end John Daka, cornerback Dante Dion, defensive back / linebacker Jake Jervis, cornerback Tyler Hall. We met his father this last weekend. That was pretty cool. Wide receiver Tristan Jackson, linebacker Micah Kaiser, wide receiver J.J. Koski, linebacker Justin Lawler, cornerback Kareem Orr, tackle Max Percher from Italy, and linebacker Christian Roseboom, who had an interception against the Broncos and is the metalhead of the team. But and then we also had Coleman Shelton, who was added to the COVID list, and Xavier Jones, who was waived / injured. So it looks like he'll require some surgery, but it looks like the Rams will be retaining him just in a different capacity. Some of the names that I got wrong, where Sheriff Joe Bags was wrong. Quarterback Bryce Perkins, I did anticipate him being a cut. Xavier Jones, I didn't anticipate him getting injured like that. Tight end Kendall Blanton, he did get cut. I had him on the team. Johnny Munn, who I completely blew off last week and didn't even mention, so that is 100% my mistake. And then Bryson Hopkins, both of those gentlemen did stay. Wide receiver Ben Skoranek stays, while wide receiver Tristan Jackson, who I had making the team, has been cut. On the offensive line, Alaric Jackson, or A.J. Jackson, stays. I had him being cut. And Shelton is on the COVID list, but he is expected to slip on in, and we'll see where that roster spot comes from when he does return. Defensive lineman Ernest Brown, I had him staying simply because he was a draft pick. I didn't anticipate that we would get rid of draft picks like that, but this is actually now the 3rd year in a row that the Rams have cut a draft pick. I saw one comment come in saying that why would we cut a draft pick? We drafted those guys for a reason. It's actually become a pretty regular thing that the Rams cut one of their draft picks, so we'll talk about that next year especially too. Eric Banks, I had staying, who was cut as well. And then Jonah Williams and Michael, is it Hoyt? I kept hearing Hoyt. I've been saying Hoyt this entire time. So, but he stays as well as Jonah Williams, kind of loaded up on the defensive line there. And I also had Obo and Terrell Lewis being cut, but they are going to stick around. Obo will be added to the short-term IR. And per McVay, the way that he answered the question was yes, probably. So it's very likely that's going to go ahead and happen, that he'll be added to the short-term IR. And Terrell Lewis does stay, which I'm not sad about at all. Justin Lawler, however, did get cut. Justin Lawler had an awesome game against the Chargers in the first preseason game at SoFi Stadium. But after that, against the Raiders as well as against the Broncos, had some trouble getting off blocks. So if I would have made my selections after the Broncos game, because, of course, my timing of recording kind of handicaps me in certain ways with my schedule. So, unfortunately, I was not able to pump out a podcast after that Broncos game, so I had to do it last week. But if I would have seen that Broncos game first, there would have been a couple of shifts in my predictions, and Justin Lawler would have been one of those. But you know what? Terrell Lewis staying doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I do remember saying last week that Obo and or Lewis could very well stay, and it ends up that they are both sticking around. Inside linebacker, I did nail all of those, including the Micah Kiser cut, which I did get some heat for, but he is added to the practice squad now, which will give that list that we have currently right now. We do have a couple of slots open still, but I did get all the inside linebackers correct, just kind of toot my own horn just a little bit there, not a big deal. And then cornerback, the Rams only kept 4, and so that one kind of got me there. Bronte Harris and Dante Dion is who I had the Rams staying. I did consider them wrong picks because that is technically the case, but Dion is going to stick around on the practice squad, but I thought Bronte Harris played really well. I thought that he did enough, but only keeping 4, it makes sense. It makes sense that with the Rams only keeping 4 cornerbacks, that Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams, David Long Jr., and Robert Rochelle would be those guys, and those were who I had as my top 4, but not going to take credit on that one. That is technically a wrong prediction. And then at the safety spot, the Rams kept 6. I did list J.R. Reed under the cornerback area, so technically I did get that one right. That's just simply because I've been seeing him play on the outside. He's been playing a lot of areas in the preseason. I did get called out on it, which is totally acceptable. You guys are allowed to do that. Sometimes I'm wrong. It happens. But J.R. Reed does stick around. I did predict 5 corners, which I did get all 5 of those correct, but then you just add in J.R. Reed, who I also did have making the team. So, oh wait, no, I think I had him as a cut. I lied. So almost correct there, but not entirely. Nick Scott will be sticking around as well as Juju Hughes. So that's actually pretty cool. Juju Hughes had an awesome preseason, and Nick Scott has been making some really good strides as far as his involvement, like it kind of evolving from just a special teams guy. He was brought in specifically by Bones. We've heard the story before. If you guys haven't, Bones basically let him know, like, you are not going to go undrafted. We will take you if you're still there. You're not going to make it through all the way through the draft. And it did end up happening that he did come to the Rams. But Bones was the guy. He was the captain of that party ship, and Nick Scott's still around and has been able to improve his talents on that defensive side of the ball. So it's a huge plus to be able to keep him around. I was a little bit worried that he would go somewhere else and then just be like a baller out there somewhere else, which you never want to see, especially the guys that we like, guys like Nick Scott, who we don't want to see them leave and crush us later on. So it's good that they can just crush others with us. You know what I mean? And then special teams, I did correctly pick all of those. Although I mean, admittedly, I will say that there was a big chunk of time there over the weekend, especially after the game, that it was like, okay, no, Bojorquez might really get this job. And I did lock in the prediction as Hecker, but there was a big chunk of time there where I was not necessarily confident in that selection at all. And there's some people that aren't necessarily too happy about this, but I'll be honest with you guys. Johnny Hecker's still an awesome punter, and he's still one of the best in the league. You can look at his last year's numbers, that he was, one of the worst, or it was his worst career season, anything like that. But you can also take a look and say that was probably his worst special teams coordinator that he's had in his NFL career. That changes this year. I think a lot of things go into it, and it's not just the averages. Some people will only look at stats. If you're a box score watcher, that's awesome. That is one way to evaluate players, but that doesn't give you the whole story. So Johnny Hecker having a lower average than he's had in his entire career, yes, that is true. Technically, you can say that he had his worst season of his career. But more realistically, if you watch the games, you watch how it was unfolding, those averages were getting dented by poor coverage. It's just, there's a lot of different factors that go into it. So you can watch box scores, and that is a good way to evaluate, but it does not give you all of the information. Watching the game unfold with your eyeballs will give you the most accurate information. And so to see Johnny Hecker stay, not sad about it one bit. If Corey would have been the guy, then I would have been rooting for Corey. But either way, you know what? I just want the guys that are here and still rocking the horns on their helmets. I want them to kick all the butt cheeks. All right. Everybody else can piss off, really. They're fine. Like, they can just get out of here. But, we got these guys now. Johnny Hecker sticks around. So let's go, Johnny. What the heck, man? That's some good stuff. As far as surprises, I did list Micah Kiser here. And that's simply because leading up to these cuts and leading into the game and everything, I was getting kind of some heat about predicting Micah Kiser. People were like, he's a starter last year. Why would you predict him as a cut? That makes no sense. Sheriff Joe Bags, you're an idiot. That's a direct quote. But, he is now gone. So I would say that I listed this as a surprise for those people, I guess, because it didn't necessarily surprise me, especially seeing your linebacker, Micah Kiser, who was playing in the fourth quarter of your final preseason game, and he's out there for every snap. That's also a big tell sign that you can just kind of see from there. It's like, oh, this guy's probably not hanging around, but he is on our practice squad. And then I also put Justin Lawler. Like I said just a minute ago, he did play really well against the Chargers. Had an absolutely awesome game. Had a sweet presser right afterwards where he got kind of like emotional about it and was having a good time and stuff like that. But I mentioned it on the show that I didn't remember seeing Justin Lawler against the Raiders. Turns out I rewatched it again for the third time, and of course he was out there. I saw his number pop out right away. He was on the opening drive. I saw him. I was like, oh, of course. But he didn't do anything. He was having trouble with getting off any block. He was not around the football on really at the end of any of the plays. A couple of them, yeah, but he seemed to struggle. And then I was kind of keeping an eye out in Denver. Like I said, guys, kind of partied pretty hard that one. It was a preseason game. Knew I was going to watch it again later on the TV, and so I wasn't paying super close while I was there. But then again, watching it again on the broadcast version of it, definitely still just had some trouble, man. Just having trouble getting off those blocks. So he comes back on the practice squad, and hopefully he can get it done. Guys, the preseason's over. You know what that means? That means you need to subscribe to Ram Showcase. That's on this side here. If you guys liked this clip, which if you did, then you're going to like the entire thing. So watch that on this side over here. Thank you guys so much for being here. Peace. Go Rams.